go live.
In the chat room, it says stream ended 2 minutes ago.
Yeah, it should be the same stream though. Hold on. Let me just.
I think we are live now.
Are we live
on a different?
now?
Yeah, it's a copy of the previous thing, not the same URL.
Not the same URL. Are we on the screen? Are we on? Let's see if they can hear us. Okay. Yep. Let's send this link over, and I apologize, people. I have no clue why it is the way it is, but we are just gonna have to make it work. Let's send out this link, and be aware that we are on live right now, and get it out and get everybody over here, and do a little bit of stressful work, and then talk about Game of Thrones finally. That'd be fun. So anybody that's just tuning in, this will be cut later, but we just need to switch this link up, and then we will actually start giving you content. It's like watching a film. We're doing probably a little worse. Okay, so let's see. BBM, my man, can you please help share this link? Do we want to get this going? For some reason, it just will not allow me to go with like the stream that it's supposed to be under. So, all the marketing and pouring out of this that I've done for the last week and a half is now pointless, and we'll go ahead and just share it last minute. But we are going to be talking about Game of Thrones episode 4 of season 8, The Last of the Starks, right? I believe that is the name of the episode, The Last of the Starks. And we have with us Andrew the Fat Dingo, as well as Kane McKay. This is the first time collabing with him, first time meeting him, so I hope that he isn't getting too frustrated here, because I know I might be. Thank you so much for joining us. We will go to you first, Kane, and we'll get everybody over here. Let me do a little bit of marketing here, and if you guys just want to go through and just tell everybody where they can find you, and also give a general idea of give some context to how you feel about this episode when I'm here frantically changing a URL on every tweet I put.
Hi, I'm King McKay. You can find me over on King McKay channel. But I think this episode for me, the biggest thing was like it felt really good for the first 3/4 of it, and that was my overall feeling. I was like, this is going to be a really strong episode. I'm really liking all these one-on-one chats they're having with these characters, and then we got to the bit where the dragon's taken out, and then we got to the bit where they teleport Missandei into the capture of Cersei, and I'm just like, what happened to this episode? That was way more frustrating than any technical difficulties with the stream, because I really loved the episode up to that point. So I thought it was going to be the best episode of the season, and I'd say that probably episode 2 is still my favorite, because they kind of messed it up at the end there. Even though like those scenes should have been the highest production and most exciting of the episode, it really wasn't. So that's my overall feelings: frustration with happiness. I was like, as soon as we had a lot of like the Grey Worm and like going up to the shore, and then the Missandei teleports into Cersei's capture. That's when I was kind of really angry, because a lot of the Varys scenes with Tyrion and like Sansa and all that was really good, like plotting, and like maybe I didn't agree with some of the motivations of the characters, but overall I thought that like all those one-on-one scenes were so good. Like the acting was superb.
Let's make sure that's going. Testing one. Is everybody hearing us? I want to make sure that audio is going. Are we getting any complaints or no? I just wanted to say, yeah, I think that absolutely they do the smaller scenes. David Nutter is known for the Red Wedding and so forth, and you get a lot of characterization and true character coming out in these moments. They have the things like playing the game is like a perfect like narrative tool. The one that Tyrion plays, he plays it with Shay and Bronn, you know, in season 1, and that's like a perfect thing for Tyrion to do because it's something I believe he would do, but also it's like a storytelling you know, just device. It's great because it is just literally, hey, I think this is who you are. Is this who you are? That is the game, you know, like, because it is, I need to guess something about you, and you know, you drink if it's true, or and so forth. So it's just like, hey, let me characterize you, and then have true character come out in the form of some drinking game. It's beautifully done. Andrew, go ahead and let everybody know where you stand before we get into all the nuances, and as soon as I settle down here and get us, you know, officially on the internet as well.
Yes, g'day everyone, Fat Dingo, Andrew, whatever you want to call me. I was glued to my seat this episode. Like, there were so many different feelings that you were going through all the different scenes in the throughout this episode. You know, at first, like, it was rather depressing. You know, starting off with the Feast of Winterfell, and then quite to the end where it was back at a very depressing state again, losing one of our major characters in the show. So I was, out of the 4 episodes so far, I probably would say I was more glued to my seat trying to take in all the different information in this episode than previous episodes. Not saying it was my favorite, but it definitely intrigued my my thoughts, and it was nothing to what I actually expected, to be honest. So
absolutely, yeah, it's I think I get what you're saying. It's like, it's surprisingly stimulating, for also lack of better words, but because it is not a lot going on until and I'm with you, Kane, on where you fell off. I probably didn't fall off as hard as it sounds you did. I didn't really find it hard to watch, but I definitely get where you're coming from at that point, because that's where we start to again get to the contrived ways in which they, you know, have conflict occur and so forth. But yeah, it's, you know, because when you're sitting around in these halls and having these conversations, they're really telling. I'm getting the super chat up here, so you guys know, or the chat. Look at me, I'm jumping to conclusions. I'm just calling it the super chat. I'm branding it like that. So, yeah, that should be live in a minute there. Yeah, so I think that, you know, these episodes are very impactful, and they do a lot for us. They give us a lot of information, and it's important again because I think my audio was turned off. They wanted to do 3 films, right? They wanted to actually, they pushed this to HBO to just release 3, like how Deadwood's got a feature film coming out on HBO. They wanted to do 3 of those. So this would stand like as your, I guess you could relate it to, you know, like The Last Kane, but just only in the sense of, you know, it's a trilogy that you're completing. But this is the first act of the last movie. So we need to know where these characters are. They just went through the Battle of the Dead, which is the ultimate unifying force, right? Or it should be. It's this binding force. It's the dead, you know? I mean, we're all in line against that, except unless you're Cersei Lannister. So that's a battle that I spoke about. You know, we won't really get into that area too much, but I didn't hate it, and I don't even like magic in story, and I don't really like so much of the high fantasy aspects. Like, it doesn't blow my mind when I see dragon riding. I think it's cool, part of the story, but it's not like, you know, I'm like, I can't wait till Jon rides a dragon. Like, I could care less if he did or not, to be honest. But, you know, it's moments like that when you're fighting mindless whites, you know, because the White Walkers do have like a language, so they have wants and needs, but the whites are just mindless, right? Like, when you see them fighting, even though they're the enemy, it's more effective to have battle like against like Ramsay, even because he has wants and needs, goals and desires. So you know that you're just not defeating the enemy in the sense of like taking their life. You are actually having, you know, somebody's dreams crushed, in their dreams, you know, Ramsay's dreams weren't good. So like it's just more fulfilling. So I think that, you know, that's why people were disappointed. But going in this episode, we see the totality of war. We start with these the funeral scene, right? And it's showcasing just how hard some of these deaths impact certain characters, because of course I'm sure they're sad everybody died, for everybody that died, but they mourn people differently, and they choose to showcase what these people meant to them, and it's very telling. Like I said this earlier in my solo cast, but you know, Sansa putting the Stark brooch on Theon is symbolic of family. She lost a family member. It's not the loss of life. It's like, okay, you lose somebody in life, but who were they to you? You know what I mean? And that's very telling about that character. Dany gives a kiss to Jorah. It's still a friend zone kiss, unfortunately. Sorry, even posthumously, he cannot get out of there. But you know, I think it was really touching because that's love. That is somebody that she loved. That is a love connection. It's not, you know, a romantic love connection, but this is something I want to pass this on to you, Kane. I think this episode really explored what is family and what is love in 3 different occasions with different sets of characters for both of those. There's family addressed with the Starks as well as Gendry, and then you have Sansa and Tyrion. Talking about, you know, relation and stuff like that. And love is the same thing. You have the aspect of Gendry proposing to Arya, and you know, you have Dany and Jon, as well as the Hound's kind of commentary on love. So you get like the different perspectives, because love isn't uniform, the way in which we view it or how we obtain it or how we apply it. Do you think that, you know, this was a good indication of where a character stand emotionally for the end of her story? We have 2 episodes left. I thought it set it up really well. Actually, one of my favorite episodes. And I just don't know if I'm alone, because I read into it so much and think that's so clever that they're addressing it this way, and they're giving us, you know, like desires and wants and needs, everything you need to check off your screenwriter's, you know, Blake Snyder beat sheet. Was it enjoyable for you in that sense, or did you just think it was cool to see people together in general?
I think for like the family aspect, I quite liked a lot what they did with a lot of the characters, but they also used Dany as a really good contrast to all of them, because she's really alone at this point in the story, and she doesn't have the same family bonds that Jon does to the Starks, and that Theon finally gained at the end there. And we even see when Tyrion, like, she has a look over to Tyrion in that feast scene, and he's with his brother, and he's laughing, he's playing drinking games, and it makes her even feel even more alone, because she's never really had that. Like, her only experience with the brother was Viserys, who was just horrible to her the whole way through, and that's the only kind of love she knew. And even when she had Khal Drogo, that was still quite a harsh break into a love as well. And so, and like now with Sandy gone, she's going to be even more isolated. And that was like one of the things I thought they built up really nicely throughout the episode. Even right from the beginning, when we had that really good speech from Jon, when he's just like, he steps up, he takes a leadership role, and he's like talking to the entire crowd before they bury the bodies. And she kind of takes a backseat there, and we could see that he like meant a lot more to those men, and that's worry builds up in her throughout the entirety of this episode, and that really works for really well, where we get her the very last shot, super angry, completely alone, feeling isolated, and everyone's tearing apart from her, and she walks out of frame. And that's the mindset she's going into for the next episode, which is going to be crazy.
Yeah, it's an excellent point. And yeah, I felt not only an emotional distance, but a physical distance between Dany and Jon, and Dany and everybody that she helped save. You know, I'm of the mind that I can totally get like why Dany's upset, right? She has done a lot of things that are, you know, the right thing to do that didn't pan out, just as his story often does. But, you know, her army is essentially gone because of these noble acts and for the North, and they don't seem to be too keen on giving her the recognition. But I can also understand why. Andrew, do you think that she is getting, you know, dismissed, and it's just dismissive behavior out of spite, or do you just think it's kind of just how humans work? We're not rational beings. We work off emotion. They know Jon. That's their hero.
Well, to me, I think you know, she, she's in a position where people should be showing her the gratitude, but just out of normal reaction, they're giving it to John, because John's the one that has won all these wars and united all these people, and they love him, they adore him as a character, and they obviously were the people that put him as their king, and to be chosen for that rank rather than someone obviously that's going around demanding it by her birthright. I don't have a problem with Dany, and she deservedly, is a good queen in some respects. It's just, some of the things that she's willing to go to makes her just as dangerous as Cersei.
Yeah, she is always going to offer her love first, and then, they will take the hate, or the fear, I mean. One thing I wanted to bring up, because, obviously birthright and claim in general is just a huge part of this story. So when we look at Jon and how he's being celebrated, Jon is a unique case because Jon rose upon merit. But he is technically now the rightful monarch in their eyes. And I always like to, at least my opinion is, not to dismiss the idea of how much meaning birthright and that claim has. It's not just like this political like tool they're that's in their back pocket so they can be like, oh, I got the rightful claim. Yes, it's useful, but they believe they're born to rule. That's my belief. I think that it's a big misconception, especially, going back and looking at history. I used to do it a lot in my 20s until I got in my 30s and just, got more assured of myself. I don't know if I got more smarter, but I stopped looking at everybody in history for their beliefs, in writing it off to modern day standards, especially looking at things like the Crusades. It's oh, they're just doing it, to, get a jail free card or blah, blah, blah. It's you can never really underestimate these belief systems because these societies were ran off of them. So I think that birthright is, definitely important for Dany, and it's going to affect her, and it has affected her that Jon has it, and more than just he has the claim, but he has rose through merit to the people's eyes, right? And it's kind of what the story is trying to convey in some sense, that this is about it's just about questioning what is the right way to rule, what is the right way to obtain power and then maintain power. So he's got this unique situation of rising through merit in showcasing things when he was in the Night's Watch, he not only did the right thing with the wildlings, but he was able to get over that whole Stark just stay true to the system in which you're in. He went against not what was just not popular, or what he was probably raised believing about the wildlings, but he went against the institution in which he swore an oath to. So that's a sign of progress. But here's my argument against it. In Tormund says this in this episode. He says he got stabbed and he died. Anybody I know that dies, just stays dead. He got resurrected. That's something that needs to be considered. People talk about Sansa stayed down in the crypts. People talk about people needing to be out there fighting. Why isn't Sansa fighting? To be a good ruler, you can't rule from the grave. So he is in a situation where he has done great things, but technically, I mean, in a world without resurrection, which I tend to believe this is one that we live in, that's not going to be a good ruler. Also, it's kind of a nice mix for him because he did rise through merit, but then he gets that birthright as well because people do hold that to be important. So I think they can properly convey the message through it because they don't want to be dismissive. George definitely is very much so infatuated with the idea of battling for claim. That's what the War of the Roses is. So my point is, we get the showcasing of a lot of different ideologies and philosophies on rule here. And Jon is a unique case, but I don't think Jon is the perfect case that people attribute his type of rule to, because again, he does have that whole, Stark thing where they tend to lose their head at an early age. And you just can't be a good ruler dead. It's that simple. King, as a king yourself, that you must stay alive. You think about that, I'm sure. Like, you're just not going to do something that's going to get you killed, because that's not going to be the best thing for the realm of men.
I did a video a while back on the Starks. I called it like, it was something clickbaity, like Starks, liars, turncloaks, and something else, betrayers. And I explained like the main lesson that we got from Rob's storyline, and the reason why he ended up, even though he was this like fantastic fighter and he won all these battles and everyone loved him and he was seen as like this main character everyone liked, the fact that he died meant all of that was gone. It didn't matter how well of a good leader he was. Is he made that one crucial mistake and he died, he couldn't survive, so he lost everything. And we saw that happen to John again. I think he learned from that a little bit, but he still seems to be going pretty gun ho and like yelling at dragons randomly when he was trying to hide. And then, I think with the thing with Dany in the storyline is that she has to reevaluate why she deserves a throne. Like if we look at what she did over in Essos, no one cared about her right to being a ruler in Westeros when she was over in Essos. So like her being a Targaryen meant nothing to why they followed her. The Unsullied, the Dothraki, all of them followed her because of her strength, because of the ways like her like actions she'd made to like make their lives better and to free them from slavery. And so she earned everything she built up while she was in Essos. And then she came over to Westeros and she didn't try to earn respect. She just tried to claim that she had this right to everything. And she started like she just keep thinking, I'm the Targaryen ruler. This is my destiny. She didn't realize that that's not how she's ever gained power, and that's how you can't really keep it with just the name. And so when Jon has to like undermine the way she thinks about why she should have the throne, she'll have to like rethink. Like if he has the better throne, then why do I still deserve it? And I hope we address that at some point during the next episode, because that's what I was done.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute. Anyway, I'm here. So yeah, I totally agree with you guys. The Dany left Essos and has not tried to win anyone's hearts as a ruler. Where over in the Essos, she did. That's exactly what she did. Everyone followed her out of the strength that she displayed. So I can't disagree with your statements there. one thing I think is with Dany is that, she should have listened to Sansa when Sansa said the people needed to rest after such a great battle, rather than taking off, straight away. Like, she's more consumed with winning this ultimate war with Cersei now than the benefit of her own people. As well, you do have to get the respect of the people, and she got respect through the scene with naming Gendry Lord Baratheon. But yeah, I agree that Jon's got the respect of the people from the North and the Wildmen. And anyone that's really had the opportunity to serve with him ends up ultimately having that respect for him.
A hell of a guy. Can you guys hear me now? Sorry, I was actually trying to be a gentleman, and I think Kane and Dingo could hear me, but nobody else could. They said they would love to hear me, so I'll just sum up what I said. I was agreeing with Kane in saying that that's really stuck out to me as well, that she has not done or put in the effort that she put in Essos. It's like Kane said, it's almost like she just, felt like she proved herself over there, and then she sailed over and said, "Where's my crown?" The point I was making is Kane's landing is very, reminiscent and it's a very familiar situation, even just watching as a viewer, as Marine, where she sends in, I believe it's Marine, where they send in the Unsullied, and they have them, they have them uprise, have an uprising within. It's pretty much, just have the dictator usurped by the people. It's your classic basic bitch Machiavelli 100-page book about simple, hey, if the ruler's bad, get the people to realize that and they'll get rid of them. If the ruler's a good guy, you got to take a different approach. The common sense book, the prince. But yeah, I think that it's important to take note that we as viewers have the empathy evoked for Dany, and I think this is really well done and successful storytelling, because I'm frustrated because I feel that Dany has made sacrifices, but also I can understand why the North is being dismissive of her, because I don't feel that she has done. Like Ken made the point, and Andrew is just furthered it, like it's like she just thought, hey, I'm gonna go ahead and prove it over here, and then I'll go over there and just go ahead and pick it up, and I'll go help Jon. But in all reality, she went there and she helped people she had no connection to. And that's like, there's something to actually be said for that, like she had no connection to him. She's just not going for the mantle, the title. She is going to help these people in the North because she wants to rule over a continent that has people that are alive in it, and she wants them to have good life. So that's all of those are attributes of a good ruler. But unfortunately, there is a good reason people don't see this, because it's all done behind closed doors across a narrow sea, and in public all she comes off as is somebody with a dragon, and essentially a conqueror and a monster that could kill another monster. Because I think Sansa sees her just as she sees what Littlefinger did. Littlefinger saved Sansa with his power, and then what happened? That same power that saved Sansa was the power that suppresses her. So the dragons are looked at by Sansa, I believe, in the same way. It's like, yeah, that's a solution to the Night King problem. And then they found out Arya was that too. But this also could be the same solution, that these dragons, as soon as Dany, is not in line with me, which seems to be likely, can suppress me. And that was just all I was saying. And I didn't have my audio input up. I'm gonna get the OBS so it is smooth, guys. Or I'll just stop doing it. It's gonna give me a heart attack.
Can I say how weak did Dany actually appear when she was actually begging Jon for his silence, not to spread that he was the true heir to the throne? I've never seen her, want something kept secret so much. Like, it was a pretty full-on scene there. Yeah.
I found it to be very surprising, and I thought it was very harsh. Kane, did you expect that much blowback from Dany, and pretty entitled? Well,
Yeah, I thought that scene was very similar to a lot of the scenes we have where you had John and Dany, and they just both were like very honest and like blunt about what they wanted, and they both just couldn't agree at all. They couldn't find any common ground, and she was getting like really cold and icy by the end there. That to the point where it was like I hadn't seen Dany like that ever really, apart from like maybe when she was really angry at Tyrion. But it was very personal, and she like definitely felt that she didn't have power over him for the first time because she knew that like normally if anyone messes with her, she'll just burn them alive. But she knows she's too attached to John to do that, and so has to convince him the conventional way, which she doesn't know how to do.
yeah, I guess it makes sense. It's, I want your love, but you'll take my fear again. What I find to be really the sticking point for me is that it's all about the power of the people. And, Fandom D Saint is going to hate me because I use this allegory and metaphor for every stream, but it speaks truth. This is a story about where power lays and how to obtain it. So the old riddle of what the sellsword does with the Kane, the priest, and the rich man, all depends on if the sellsword is a man that enjoys, or a woman, because women can be murderers too. I'm all for empowerment. It does not have to be a male killer. I think women kill all the time. I think you're great at it. If they like coin, they're gonna go with the rich man. If they like, if they're a monarchist, they're gonna be like, hell yeah, with the king. If they're pious, they're gonna go with the priest. So the point is, it's about the people hold the power and they empower the institution. So what does it say? And then go to Andrew first on this. What does it say about a situation in which we're supposed to be looking at the breaking of the wheel? We're supposed to be looking at the empowerment of the people. And we talk about John being, loved by the people, but Dany wants to suppress information from the people because of the very fact that she knows that combined with their love will make it impossible for him not to be king. So essentially what you've gone from wanting to have a successful and rule in a way that your father didn't. They all, Dany says that I want to leave the world better than I found it and all this, to, oh my God, you're such a qualified ruler, not just somebody people like, in this, society. So people just can't find out and you need to be quiet about it. I guess, is there any like pragmatic sense to this? Meaning, like, is this coming from a place maybe other than she just doesn't want him to be king? Because it seems to be really out of line with the message, but also, true to what Game of Thrones does. It subverts our expectations. But meaning, does she think that this will affect Cersei's demise at all? I don't, it just seems like this is the only action that Dany is making right now that I'm having a hard time getting behind, because it is literally withholding information from the people so they can't get the king that she seemingly thinks, it just would be unavoidable if they found out. That speaks pretty loudly to me.
I honestly think that this is the first thing that she has honestly seen that could destroy her opportunity of being the ultimate queen that she wanted to be. I think that no matter what she's said in the past, she has always wanted to be the queen. No matter with talking of breaking wheels, I think she wants to change things, but she's still wanted to be the queen more than anything on the face of the planet. And John's claim to the throne is the first time that has really shaken her, because it's the first thing that she knows that, well, if the people know this, the people will not support her. Westerosi people will go for John over Dany any day of the week. So yeah, I do see this as the biggest threat to that birthright that she believes that she has, and she honestly thinks that she's more deserving of than anyone on the face of the planet, and she believes in destiny as it's been discussed in the show, with Tyrion and Varys more than anything. How could she not? She's a woman that walked in with 3 petrified eggs into a fire and came out with 3 dragons. So, yeah, I bet.
I totally agree with Andrew there. I think that she's going to have to like change her view on the world or kind of die in her stubbornness. Like all of the other characters from Tyrion and Varys are looking for the best leaders, who's going to be the best for like humanity or what's going to happen. But she's just looking to get herself on the throne. Like she wouldn't, even if some perfect ruler came who everyone would follow and make everything better, she would rather herself to be king. She, even though like everyone would be better off with John if he could do the politics better, if he was a better leader, if people would follow him more, he could stop the bloodshed. Like she's even contemplating killing hundreds of thousands of innocent civilians to try and quicken up her getting into the throne to get rid of Cersei. She keeps getting all these personal costs, like she's losing her friends, her allies, and her own like power and dream for the betterment of these people she doesn't know. And so it's gonna be a conflict between, do I keep taking personal costs for these people in Westeros I don't know for the greater good because that's what she claims she's like acting on behalf of, or does she buckle down and just get what she wants? I think that was a really good point.
Yeah, it's I am a little bit stuck on the whole Cersei aspect. I think this is where we're gonna divide, because I am just kind of fed up with this idea of we need to treat with Cersei. Season 7 is probably mostly responsible for this, because it's very understandable now, like why, because they don't, I have the numbers up, the logistics that they've given us, which they gave, these are the numbers they gave us. So, you know, whether or not that ends up being true or not, it looked like they had 15 unsullied. I think it was like 14, and like one guy was, like, Frank's not here, he's sick. But yeah, it wasn't very formal. I think that was the point though. But here's my thing with Cersei. Number one, putting up, you know, I'm gonna try not to get out into the tactical and armchair general, like, you know, I'm not qualified, I don't have military experience, but I think it does come down to like a common sense and a logic issue here with Cersei, that there's just, you know, it gets to a point with her where I have to wonder if she is, you know, hiding behind these people. Like, why have they not been able to provide that, like even to like giving them some sort of like I don't know, like pop up like city like they do for like refugees or whatever, to give them somewhere to go. I don't think they're being held inside King's Landing. So it's like we've been told that Cersei has to be treated with, that we can't just go in there and take out Cersei because it's going to cost all these lives. But Cersei's defense is, hey, I know you're not going to fuck with me because I'll kill all these people. So I'm just having a hard time getting my head around the idea of still we need to, you know, like negotiate with Cersei, even with like literally no army. I think now is more than ever the time just to be like, you guys need to come out. You know, like she has a foreign militia there, which is a not a great sign for your rule, because you're now outsourcing your protection, meaning people don't follow you. And it's just, I'm having a hard time with that. I don't think that Dany is irrational in that, Kane. I just would separate you from you on that. But again, that's just everybody's opinion. I think it's a point of being fed up with it from season 7, dancing around it, like before, you know, because the arc wasn't in the place for Cersei where they could have the final resolution, so they had to just kind of like, you know, have all these reasons. It's kind of bad writing, you know. Your protagonist like can't succeed yet, so they keep making them fail, like for some contrived nonsense, you know. So yeah, like you probably like it is sensible to say that Dany's overreacting now, but like just like the other people didn't see Dany's actions like in the other seasons, you know, like in the story now, I just have to accept it for what it is and just make believe that they did have to bring that Scooby-Doo captured white to her and prove it. In season 7, just get over that. But yeah, I mean, I'm in this situation because what we have, and I've got let me see, I did make some graphics here, it comes down to Tyrion versus Varys, right? You know, these are the people that are trying, they're like the kingmakers, they're like the Warwick, you know, are they going to be at odds? Is this going to be maybe a little bit of the rehashing, not just of the political intrigue and the jostling for power, but, you know, a little bit of the Littlefinger aspect as well, getting Tyrion versus Varys. I don't see any way of them not being it. I mean, they essentially already are at odds, but they haven't taken action yet. What do you think? Do you think that this is something that they're going to find some common ground on, or do you think there's going to be some real backdoor dealing? Because that's kind of what I want to really flesh out here, because I think there's a lot of opportunities. Like, we could literally play musical chairs with these people and even justify situations in which Sansa is going to be aligned with Dany before Jon will, and they have a common enemy. More so in Cersei. You know, I'm not saying that's gonna happen. I'm just saying there's a lot of like plausible situations here, especially for Dan and Dave, because remember they captured a white in a box, you know, and brought it to King's Landing. So I'll go to you first, Kane, on this. But yeah, you know, what do you think about Tyrion versus Varys? This is what I want to see. I don't want to see Clegane Bowl. I think that's like a drunken frat boy's wet dream. But now we are going to see it. I want to see the battle of minds.
I think, like, for sure, the moment we had that first scene with Varys introduced himself and he was trying to convince Dany that he should stay with him. And he said, I would confront you and tell you when you're making a mistake. And he did that in this episode. And then she said, right afterwards, if you ever betray me or burn you alive, that's like, he has to be burnt alive now. I think that's the way Varys ends. I think Tyrion will be the one that takes him down. I don't think Dany is prepared to stop a plot that he would run. I don't think she's smart enough. But if Tyrion's kind of been like a bit klutzy with a lot of his decisions for most of the season, and so if he could like take Varys down at Varys' own game, expose him and like stop him from doing something rash and taking out like maybe killing Dany or something, if he could stop him from doing that and then Dany executes him, that could be a way that Tyrion finally proves himself to Dany, and then that he can use as leverage to kind of change the tack that Dany uses. Like, I don't think negotiating with Cersei is a smart idea either. Like, straight away, I don't think the first meeting was just ridiculous. She had no army, no influence, no one liked her. You had 3 dragons, Dothraki army and everything. Like, walk up to the Red Crew, burn 3 buildings, maybe a few drink servants die as well. Rest in peace. But like,
a shit ton of xenophobia.
Yeah, it was just like, you're a ruler, you're going to be conquering in anyway. And like, oh no, the people in King's Landing, like if you burn the Red Keep exclusively, the Lord's in there, like if you don't have to go through the gates and like get all the way to the Red Keep, you just flew up with dragons and took her out right in the beginning, she would be like 100 under people dead, like, which is less than the amount of people she ran down with his Dothraki when she caught Jaime on the loot train attack.
No,
so like,
no, I'll just be done. No, yeah, no, I'm sorry, I'm joking. I think that's like what they're doing. Like when she's giving that speech about what she's gonna do. Like, you all remember the Mad King and what he did. I would just wanted to be on that set as an extra, and I would have get booted off. I've done extra work, but I would have raised my hand and be like, "You just blew up the set." To be fair, everything you're explaining is just at best equal to how horrible you are. And you know, even in this time, pretty racist. So yeah. So I guess my question is that I pop this over to you, Andrew. Do you think that Tyrion is going to be more conflicted, because Tyrion is not just being pulled between Dany and Jon? He's got allegiances to his family still, whether we like it or not. That's a reasonable. I believe it's been established, and I don't have an issue with him wanting to prove to Cersei that he is not a monster. I believe that's a rational. You know, I don't believe that he, you know, like she deserves it, but I believe that's something that he would do. That's all you have to do is, you know, they've convinced me that this character would do that, and I think it's a nice touch because it makes this story far more layered. But also Sansa, right? That was a little bit pushed, but you know, there's also the connection to Sansa. So it's like you've got a guy that's behind Dany 100% right now, and I find it kind of odd. Is my point that he's the one that really has the most fleeting allegiances, like, are the reasons that he could, you could make the argument that he would, like, you know, be swayed. So do you think it's like a case of him just like, he's in denial and he's just like going all for Dany because he is conflicted? Because it seems like he's being pulled in different directions, right? And he's the one that's like, no, we got to stick with Dany, you know?
Absolutely. You know, Tyrion is in the most conflicted part of his entire storyline since we saw him last negotiate with his sister. You know, we finally discovered that he didn't hate his family as much as he had professed after, you know, his entire Essos storyline. And, you know, I think that betrayals are definitely something that could happen. I'm not saying it will, but I'm saying there is a very high probability because of Tyrion's longing to see House Lannister further down the track, and he knows that he's got a nephew or a niece brewing in that oven at the moment, and he basically wants to see that line continue. So yeah, I think Tyrion would do things to betray Dany, even though he has had severe loyalty. I think ultimately he'll do anything for House Lannister in the end.
Yeah, he's viewed as a monster by them, and the best way to prove your enemy wrong that believes you're a monster is to not be a monster. Kane, how much in general do you think political like just straight up backstabbing we're gonna see in these final episodes? How crazy do you think it's gonna get? I'm predicting on a Littlefinger like Ned like level, like first season when he puts the knife to his neck with the gold cloaks and fucks him over. I being like 10, I'm right at 9, if not like right at 10. I think that we are gonna see like a whole bunch of fuckery.
Yeah, like Tyrion is at like the peak kind of conflicted point. We even saw that like at the very last scene we had when they were negotiating. Tyrion was in like the midway ground between Dany's forces and Cersei. He'd walked like halfway through, and when Missandei died and fell off the ramparts, you could see his face just drop as he looked one way and then the other way, and you could see he was like torn in this mid place where he wanted to make these people like work together and fight, but he just couldn't. And then Varys again pushed him again on that. And so he's in this like very dangerous point where he could betray Dany for Jon's team or for the Lannisters, and he's got all these conflicting motivations. I don't actually know whether they'll go like at this point what they'll make him do. I hope he will stay with Dany, I think, and like maybe switch that around. But I think almost every character will have to reevaluate what they're going for. You might have a Jon betrayal. You'll have Tyrion really conflicted. Of course, Varys is going to betray someone really big. You might even see things within the Red Keep, like Euron, because we saw that Tyrion name drop that he knew about the baby, and that might make things start ticking in Euron's brain because he's like, how did my enemy know when I found like 2 days ago that you're pregnant? It's be very strange to him. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that brings us to Missandei, who I thought, hey, she was, pretty disrespectful. Might have had it come. No, it was a pretty senseless murder by Cersei. But I think that it wasn't senseless in the case of poor writing. That's not what I'm saying. I think that it's to showcase just how ruthless Cersei is willing to go. I think that what does this death mean for our story? Okay, Dany, because it's what I was talking about at the beginning, and shine light on this, that Dany lost a friend, and she is really not, she doesn't have an abundance of them, so that's something that's very important. Like, it's always good, like I said, to have these episodes because you want to know that you're not just losing a character that was crucial for the function of this plot, but you have them having their conversation about going away after Grey Worm and Missandei have that in episode 2 of this season. They're going to, like, this idea of they're going to have a life outside of this. It's always done like in lesser films and story. It's done like an action hero will always like have that like 5 minutes of screen time with like the love interest that it's this last time he has to do this mission, and then they can either get married or they're gonna have a kid. You know what I mean? It's the promise of something better, and it's the promise of something else. So if your protagonist doesn't prevail, it's not just, oh, he didn't stop the bad guys, oh, he didn't get to marry Julie and she's gonna have their kid, the woman they showed us in for 2 minutes. But this is done well. We get to know our secondary characters, because secondary characters and even one-dimensional characters layer characters. So the death of Missandei, I think, has heavy implications on Grey Worm. Grey Worm's strength and the Unsullied strength comes from like their Bronn speaks to this. about how they aren't swayed by transitory. He doesn't, use the word maesters, but transitory pleasures, meaning like they're not distracted by sex or anything that is indulgent, and they are not as scared to fight because they literally have been desensitized. Now she's given them a chance to find identity, and that's what we saw what happened with Grey Worm. To play devil's advocate, if I want a good army, I don't want Grey Worm to have this relation because I think that he is fundamentally flawed. Like, this is like critical system error on Grey Worm. I think that you have just empowered that freaking badass little worm, and I think that could have deadly consequences. I don't see any other reason story-wise to pick Missandei other than it's very effective for Dany's psyche, but let's face it, Dany is pretty emotionally fucked as it is right now. I really think that this, again, I'm not saying it doesn't matter, but I'm saying the primary probably function of this death for our story is to probably incite violence and emotional violence. He will start thinking, through emotion, be driven through hate and vengeance. And I think that is, again, they took the numbers away from the Unsullied, but who's to say there's not a million of them next episode? So I'm just saying that you have just, shaken the hornet's nest. You think I'm blowing this out of proportion, or do you think that this is gonna, not only be a little like political intrigue and backstabbing? You've got a military general that is fucking pissed. I mean, like, they don't show emotion, and I think he blinked. So, I think this is going to have huge consequences.
I think for Grey Worm, they said half, I think, which was crazy, of the Unsullied is still alive. So there's a bit more than 14, but I don't know how that happened. But yeah, I feel like this is the one chance they can give the Unsullied more than just like perfect soldiers as as a plot line. Like, maybe when Grey Worm gets into the city, he does something crazy, something a bit like not formal 100% his training. Like, he takes down a whole bunch of those soldiers that were like unarmed or surrendering, or at some moment where we could see a little bit more depth to him as he like breaks down from all of his like cold nothing. I don't know how much of the character they want to like beef him up to, but they're giving him tons of scenes. Like, every single time we go to Dany, we see him and Missandei first, and he's always there like as at his side and the reaction, and even from episode 2, 1, all of that. So he's like not going to be that small of a character this season. And I think you're probably right along the ideas of him breaking at some point and doing something that we haven't seen him be capable of yet.
Like a Jon during the Battle of the Bastards. We've seen how emotion, and then Dany during the Long Night, acting out of emotion. Andrew, do you think that Grey Worm is going to just go straight up Rambo on some asses? And I mean this in a way of he's going to, like King just said, that this, I'm not saying he's just going to kill everybody. He could end up getting everybody killed because like their restraint and their obedience, and I'm looking for the word,
Discipline.
Thank you. That's it. Discipline. Yes. So discipline is their strength. Yes, I like you. So again, I'm not saying he's gonna spear everybody in the world, but yeah, just the lack of discipline could really have a lot of overarching consequences.
Absolutely. I think that emotions are terrible things to have when you're trying to basically plan out a war, and you need to think logically and understand what your enemy will do, not care about the end result. And I think Grey Worm is compromised. Vengeance is all he seeks now. Is truly what I think. And as we know, he doesn't care for this land. He already professed it to Missandei in episode 2. He wanted to go to the island of Narth and die with her as an old man. They wanted to leave this land after he had won it for his queen, and that's all he was about. Now this has changed. It's not just winning it for his queen; it's winning it for the sake of vengeance. And when vengeance is that motivation, you don't care about what you do to win that result. As for the minimalistic amount of Unsullied, I believe there are more, but I think the reason we only got to see that many was showing that that's all they could ferry from Dragonstone at this point in time because of all the ships that were destroyed. So that was my kind of guesstimate to that scene. I don't know what you guys think to that answer, but yeah.
No, I think it speaks truth because, well, I mean, because there's a difference between achieving, having your vengeance and winning a battle. That's where the difference, comes into play. You're looking for vengeance, not strategic, victory. You're not looking to take land. You're looking to essentially, he's when it puts past, this is Missandei made him a human being. Literally, that is his arc. The function he serves is as a general, but Missandei's relationship with him in teaching language and epidemiology and all that great stuff, I don't understand why she was with him, why she's was with him on there, but whatever. It does say that they have 5K Unsullied, and that I had to change that 2 dragons to 1. But I guess Yara and also the new Prince of Dorne, which I do want to touch on, briefly. I don't think that we're gonna get some Yornwoods or they're gonna go crazy. I think that the only people from Dorne that they ever showed us, and do they even mention that Arthur Dayne is from Dorne? I don't know if they ever mention that. So we just have to figure that, you're not going to get high towers. You're not going to get, people meaning the Reach, you wouldn't see high towers injected, even though they've spoken about them. They have to they have to state in the television show, for all you book purists. I'm a book reader myself, but I never expect the injection of something that's not specifically stated. That's not how it works. This is a high concept show. They're not going to be they'll figure it out. They'll have to read the books. So I would assume there might be a fucking sand snakes that decided not to use a bullwhip somewhere. But I guess they're getting an injection of, support from that. But I think that this is, you have your people that are making the decisions that are conflicted and the people that have to carry out the orders that are conflicted. So this is, this is so much more of a crap show than the Battle with the Dead even, because there's so much more forces going against each other. That's what I like about these episodes that showcase people's wants and desires and how they have, separation and so forth. Because Kane, what would you say Sansa's goal is? What is her want? I say it's independence.
Yeah, I think she definitely feels like her entire life she's been a pawn in other people's games, and I think she's reflected that onto the North as well. She's sick of the North being a pawn in the Seven Kingdoms, especially because they're so different of a culture compared to a lot of the other things that carry across. And I also like when Missandei in that scene said Dracarys is her last word. My first thought was thinking of Dany burning them all, right? But then I also think that Grey Worm was there as well. And then Grey Worm could take that Missandei just said, kill them all as well. So that would be another motivation for him to go crazy or berserk if he gets to the city, pretty much, and want to get that revenge over his men surviving. Because even in the Battle of Winterfell, which was everyone who died there was legends, and they was they died with honor and all this other great stuff. And we had that big speech from Jon. What they did there was objectively good. Where in this battle, you're going to have a whole bunch of war criminals coming out, not a whole bunch of legends. It's not going to be heroes of war. It's going to be Jaime's of war. The things that happened with him, where after the Second King's Landing, it was some horrid baggage followed them. And so maybe with Jaime, he'll reverse that this time if he comes in and makes himself an actual hero, whilst a whole bunch of other characters will do it the other way around. But yeah, I think Sansa's independence is what she's going for mainly. She doesn't want to be the pawn in anyone else's game anymore. She's done with all the Westeros. She doesn't trust people, even because she knows people can manipulate her and others, and she's sick and tired of it.
Yeah, so I guess the question is, can she have independence without obtaining power?
they could give her power. I wouldn't see it beyond her taking power, like especially if whether she did it with through Bran or by betraying John. Because as much as she says like it's for family, she betrayed John within 30 seconds with that secret. She didn't ever like him that much as a child. She had a bitter relationship even when there was just the two of them, and like all the way through, she's never been fully Team John, even when she says sometimes she is, and she's even quite distant with Arya. I feel she's well within her ability to betray John like deeply, like even kill him off. Like that is well within her capabilities if she gets power from that.
Damn, kill it. Yeah, I mean, I guess she would do anything to avoid what's happened to her in the past, and I mean, it's just it's been made abruptly clear that she is not playing games when it comes to the North. She's the one that's getting things done. I don't agree with how they've handled her character. I don't want to repeat this because I say it all the time, but she should understand the power of perception better. She did in King's Landing. She was able to keep her game face on that whole time, and now she's seemingly unable to voice. I think Sansa is right at the wrong time and in the wrong way. She's thinking about the logistics and all that, which is something necessary, something they say great generals think logistics, regular generals think tactic, stuff like that. She's doing the right thing, but she's being very mouthy about it, in front of people, where it's just it's not something that would be productive. And I think that is Dan and Dave creating conflict. But I guess really the question is, because we have this on screen, I do have the graphic where you have Bran coming in, and the primary piece of information, I like to joke and say it's from Ancestry.com, is he comes back from the North with pretty much the big, if he had to write down one thing, let's say he had a bad memory, he would have wrote down Jon is Dany's nephew. You know what I mean? That's the vital piece of information. So in a story where birthright is important in the sense of it's important within that society, but not so much the message isn't you have to have a ruler that's, born to rule. It's very odd that is information. And what I found interesting, because it was one of the questions in the pre-stream with Hax and Robert and Johnny Be Crazy, it was, do we think that Bran was going to interject in that conversation with the conflict with Cersei, and it's interesting because he leaves it up to Jon to tell them, right? So first off, he already told some people, so I don't know if that's a moot point, but let's just accept that it is, every story has its flaws, and the sentiment is that this should be, Jon has agency here. Is that fair to say? Because that was odd that he went through all this trouble to get it, but then it was would he been fine with Jon not saying anything? Because he went through a lot to get that information. It seems like it's a pretty big deal.
It's probably not the only area with underutilized Bran as well. He's the best intelligence any army could have in the world. They never asked him yo, is Cersei planning anything when we get down to King's Landing? A ambush, for example. If they had him actually helping the main characters, this entire season, he's kind of been extremely unhelpful, apart from telling you some fun facts about wheelchairs. He's been pretty useless. In the entire battle for Winterfell, he just sat there with his birds watching. He didn't seem to do anything but be bait, and then he doesn't help them with any knowledge with Cersei in the fight, because I don't think he has any motivation unless directly asked to intercede. But it seemed like he did have motivation for the Jon reveal, though. That was the one thing he pressured Sam into doing it at that time, and he made sure to tell certain people. And then all of a sudden he dropped that now. So maybe it wasn't important. And after the Night King died, I wasn't entirely sure what happened there.
Yeah, that wasn't critical to that at all. The Night King's oh crap, I didn't know that he was having sex with his aunt. Oh snap, you know what I mean? That wasn't that wasn't the catalyst for change. I'd like to believe that I think that Bran's a risky character as far as approaching it from just a storytelling sense, because if you have him really use his powers, there's nothing that he can't do, so you're eliminating stakes from your story, because Bran can, now you've got time travel potentially. I guess the best idea of what Bran can do, and he says he lives in the past, is he provides perspective. So that means he can go and see people's mistakes. But, I like the whole like analogy because I think it's clever, but I don't know how much it means. I like to say that he can see anything, but he still has to be told where to look. It's not like seeing the past. It's definitely helpful. I mean, how many times have you heard you gotta know history so you don't repeat it, and there's truth to that. But come on, I mean, we know about World War II. We know about genocides that are happening right now. I think that we try to be good people, but let's face it, we're aware of our history, and I don't know. I'm gonna go ahead and say I'm not perfect. I mean, I'm not going and starting a war, but I don't think civilization is perfect, and we got 24-hour news, like shoving down every school shooting, everything down our throat, we are surrounded by the I mean, we're aware of all these terrible things that happen, and we still, it doesn't stop them from happening, is what I'm getting at. So it's not like he's this ultimate, like, being able to have that sight is like some ultimate weapon, but it is something, like you said, that should have been utilized. Like, hey, maybe I should bring up what is it Mira Martell, who and Doran, that killed the first Aegon's dragon with that's not the first freaking Scorpion. The first dragons that tried to conquer Westeros, Vraxes, I believe, is the one that got shot down. He deducted it to, if they can be wounded, that means they can be killed. I'm like, ooh, genius. That's great logic. But yeah, you're right. Like, they should at least be like, hey, dude, like, anything? Like, can you look back at this battle or this battle or this battle? He's like, no, but Frank, you are having sex with your second cousin. So I know you were happy and you guys are having kids, all that, but just want to shame you a little bit. So Andrew, you what are your thoughts about Bran's? He's like a psychic Maury.
Lol.
Do you have Maury in Australia? It's not bad if you don't. It's better for your society.
Yeah, we used to. I don't think it's still on anymore. I haven't seen it on TV for a long time, but I do know the show that you're talking about.
Yeah, it's a shitty show. It's like just garbage people that are like, they clap when they're not the father, so they're essentially like applauding a fatherless child and spitting it and dancing in the person's face. Classy shit. It's America. But I just want to make sure I'm using the right anecdotes. But then go ahead.
But yeah, Bran has completely been underutilized this entire show, with considering the powers that he does have. I mean, however, like, when Tyrion says that he's jealous of him, he does say, "Don't be. I live in the past." So maybe he doesn't get to see a lot of the future. It's maybe his benefits are only being able to look at the past. And as said before, he doesn't know where to look until he's guided, basically, by conversations with people. So it makes you wonder how the previous Three-Eye Raven got his knowledge, being in a cave by himself for the entire period. He probably got a lot of original information from the Children of the Forest, but apart from other things, maybe only his lifetime worth of memories. But yeah, I definitely think Bran could have been utilized to kind of say, look, you are about to get ambushed. Listen to Sansa, take a few weeks break, let everyone heal up, and on your way to Dragonstone, make sure that your dragons don't go near this point. Just logical shit. But
essentially common sense. Like, it just might mean more because they know he's like some type of tree god. But I think it's kind of like a double-edged sword, because he's so desensitized by seeing so much that he gives zero fucks. He literally gives zero fucks about what's going on. So he's just like, yeah, whatever happens with this shit, whatever. I'm like, for some reason, his main focus is just blood relation, intercourse, which I don't agree with, and I'm happy he's putting a stop to. But it seems like an odd way to like utilize that power. But yeah, it's very weird. You think that there'd be some sort of at least an attempt by other people too. Like, I would like have him say stuff. I would be like, hey, Bran, if you say it, it's gonna mean more because you're a wizard. And they're going to take it like more seriously. You know what I mean? Like, they're going to be like, okay, maybe we should, just go and send, like Kane said before, to the Red Keep, which is isolated. from the rest of the city and go and kill. Yeah, it might be a few hundred people, but let's remember she's literally blowing up a sept and doing crazy things every other day. And robbing the Reach. To get money for a sellsword company. So yeah, it's very interesting. Kane, you did a really good preview video. I think it was before the second episode where it did appear like we were gonna get like the almost like courtroom, which I found very intriguing. But like that the trial of Jamie was going to be much more prevalent. Because the promo, obviously focused on it so much, and it was rather short and it was rather good. But you brought up, or you did a really good job too of like showcasing how Jamie has gotten to where he's at right now. And I think that's why I talk about, I call it rinse and repeating when we're at episodes like this past episode, is where you need to reestablish, just like this should be looked at as 3 episodes that could stand alone. You know what I mean? To reestablish people's desires and what they their wants and then their needs. Their wants, what they want to get and what they need to get it. So where is Jamie at right now? Because it subverted my expectations. I think it's great that they did the fan service with the love connection with them. I thought the knighting would be like, once we got that, and then they wouldn't, give us both. I still don't even know if I wanted it. I just think it's good because I like both characters. I don't know. I didn't get anything sensually out of it. I don't want to come off like that, but now people are gonna think that though. But anyways, okay, so he is in love with Brienne one night, and then he is marching off. It's like somebody made a good point earlier when I was trying to get a good metaphor for what he did. It's like what Tyrion did to Shay, right? Like, it was almost just like, it's not that he really loves Cersei or anything. I think that he's of the mind of that his arc is either killing her or dying trying. And he's just trying not to hurt Brienne. It's one of those things where you have to act like a dick in order to protect them. You seem to have a really good grasp on Jamie as a character and the sequence of events that led him here. He's had a rapid change, which tends to happen in your last act, to be fair.
Yeah. I think Jamie facing his darker half with Cersei is like going to be the main point of this last 3 episodes. He's been such an important character because he's been interacted with almost all the characters we've met now. He's also had a really interesting path from season 1 all the way to now. And I think that this little moment we had with Brienne was just supposed to remind us that of all the shitty things he's done. Because he got forgiven by Bran, he got forgiven by Sansa and Brienne in that big trial sequence. It was, but like, he personally hasn't faced his problems yet. He's been forgiven by other people, but he hasn't done it himself. I think he still really has that part of him. He doesn't know if he's fully converted yet, and so he just hid away in Winterfell with Brienne. He would always have that trouble, and so he's going to go face Cersei now. And I hope that my theory they've had for ages ends up and he stops Cersei from blowing up all of King's Landing and doing a good Mad King 2.0. Maybe he'll even kill Qyburn as well, like he did the Pyromancer or whatever with the Mad King. And that will be his redeeming moment. And I don't know if he'll die in that scene or if they'll just like have a metaphorical death where like he comes out of that, the old Jamie dead, and it'll just be a new one. I feel like that would be really like a sweet and like good moment. And if that's happening, I feel like things are going to be horrible in other places because to balance it out. But I hope that Jamie's arc is the good half of the episode, and then all the tragic stuff is Dany and Jon and whatnot.
Wow, that's dark too. A good point though is, did you notice how before he had this, fleeting change in desires, he said that he was said to be staying there because everybody is set off on their journey in this episode, as tends to happen. They're all splitting into 2 right now, and you have Jamie that stays there, and he's staying there for the Lady of Winterfell. They say the same reason that Jamie became a Kingsguard was to be by Cersei, because Tywin was hand, she was supposed to be marrying Rhaegar. So he is like, it's the same like behavioral trends that he's exhibiting. So it would make sense. But pass this on to both of you guys. Andrew first. What does this say about Arya's goal? Because I believe that they are both headed in that direction for the same reason. Arya is going there to kill Cersei. He's going there at least to try to stop her. I have to believe. I don't think he's going there to, make it good between them. So I think that, there's possibilities for conflict between those two as well. That's what's great about it. I think it seems fairly clear, right, that Arya's going there to kill Cersei. I mean, I can't think of another reason she's other than they know we want to see the Hound, in Cersei, which I do in Arya on the Road. That's the only reason I'm gonna not get upset about Clegane Bull, Phantom D Saint. I'll be excited. But yeah, I think it's gonna be cool because we get the little road trip thing again for a half episode. But yeah, I don't know, Andrew. Do you think that we're gonna see Jaime and the other Kingslayer, Arya? Shit. Hey, I just made that connection too. I'm sure that's probably about a few days too fucking late. But there we go. What do you think about that? Kingslayer versus Kingslayer.
I look. I do believe Arya is going to be involved in Cersei's death somehow, and a lot of us have for a long time thought, she's going to be wearing a face to do it. Is the face going to be Jaime? Well, there's a chance that could be the case. I mean, to me, Jaime's kind of really kind of served his purpose in the storyline. So I don't think that, apart from a possible scene with Arya where we might get will be his last coming up. But yeah, no, I think it's definitely going to be Arya that gets the kill. It's just whether or not it's going to be with Jaime's face. Yeah, I can't really make any other prediction on that.
Yeah, in his arc, I mean, because he serves the function of essentially really giving us a good insight into like what is an honorable man in a dishonorable world, what is a sane man in an insane world, and so forth. With the conflicting oaths, and he shines light on Arthur Dane and all the greatest Kingsguard that we ever hear about. They were the ones that were good to their oaths, but oaths to a mad king. So he serves that function. But I do believe that he's personal journey it doesn't have to be killing Cersei, but it has to be addressing the conflict with Cersei, not just walking away. He has to go back because there is a pregnancy, and I want to get into that next, because there is a possibility that they just made Euron like have a desire that I fucking like can understand, 'cause as of right until now he's just been about killing family, shitting on the people that follow him. In pirates or democracy, it's a democracy on a pirate ship. They would mutiny in a second. I mean, it's crazy to me that anybody would follow him. He simply ran a campaign of I'm gonna go fuck the queen, and you guys smell, and everything sucks here. He didn't kill Yara 'cause it's like lasers on Shark's head. It's just he's evil for the sake of evil. But I think I see him like actually wanting that kid, and I'm like, oh my god, that's reminiscent of a human being. A terrible human being, but it's somebody that I could see being upset about something because they truly like wanted something. Like they weren't just like, killing people like the Golden Company, he's like, oh, they were gambling, or maybe I was gambling. And Harry Strickland, is just shaking his head. He's like, God damn it, this guy's an idiot, like he's making sense here. So I think that Jaime just needs to go and address the issue because, he walked away from her, which is a step in the right direction. But I think that, especially with all that's going down right now, he does need to go there. So I don't think he needs to kill her, and I don't think it has to be him. I don't think that even Cersei necessarily needs to die. I think she should die, like legitimately, even if it was just in real life, but not just metaphor and allegory. Pretty shitty person. But yeah, I think that to have an ending to our story, we need a few things to happen. I don't think Cersei's death is one of them. I think it's the removal of Cersei, but more importantly, the way in which they remove Cersei. And it's people, the Night King just needed to die. That's an example of a character that just needed to come in, be a force that binds people together, and then they die. People are disappointed because they thought they were going to get more information about that, and they didn't. They decided who killed the Night King in the third season, and they decided it on the criterion of who deserved it, like in the story sense, like that fans wouldn't get too pissed, which they're wrong, even though I think it makes sense for an assassin to assassinate. But the meaning is, it's not a story about who can kill the Night King. It was a story about just, fighting that force, and he needed to die. Cersei, same type of deal. It's, the Valonqar is thrown out there to give a whole bunch of prophecy to be like a red herring and make us like, it's good. It's good for the story. Like, we have all these ideas of who has to kill her, right? It's not that she just needs to die. It's like, ooh, she's got to, fulfill this prophecy in a story that is a forewarning about the belief in prophecy and the adverse effects. Prophecy has to happen for some reason. I don't know. King, what do you see going down in King's Landing with as far as Euron and Jaime? We got one dragon left. We got the Unsullied. We got this Prince of Dorne I hope it's another Sand Snake, with 2 whips this time. But what's gonna go down? Are we gonna see this just musical chairs essentially with the factions? Because it seems like we have every reason to believe that it is going to be completely different people aligned in about a half episode than it was at the start of this episode. I'd be very surprised if there was more than one person that was still on the same side as far as who they were working with to achieve what they want, because nobody's goals are really aligned.
I think it would be interesting if you were right that Cersei doesn't die, because her, like, ever since season 1, ever since she told Ned, when you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die, that's been her mindset, like, do or die kind of like mentality all the way through. And for her to be proved wrong, for her to be toppled off her throne, to lose all her power, all the things she's fought for ages, and not be like killed, and to be able to like have a life, and she just sit there like, I lost everything, but I'm not dead, but I still have like prospects, and I still can have like a life. That'd be crazy, and it would like undermine all of the horrible things she's done, and make that like that kind of a good message, like that her mentality was actually wrong. With Euron, I don't see them having too much time to humanize him as a character. Like, they'll add a bit of depth to him. Maybe he'll get really angry if he finds out the baby's not real or that it's not his. I'm still not convinced it's real. I don't know. It's just mainly around the timing of the episodes. It's been quite some time and doesn't even look like she's getting started to look pregnant yet. But it could just be the filming and whatnot. And then, yeah, I agree that they're going to flip the chessboard on this. They've made it very like Cersei is this evil person. She's got her own things. But it seems like all of the characters on Dany's side are only really going there because they think that that's what they're supposed to be doing. And they're all realizing that they've got different motivations happening in King's Landing. And if they all break apart before when things start going down, that would make a lot of sense. So I could definitely see this like really turning into chaos, with Grey Worm doing his own thing, changing entirely. We could see Dany. I don't even know where they're going to go with Dany. They keep pushing this like tyrant. She's going to do something horrible, and so I feel like they're pushing it so hard that I almost don't want it to happen. I want like to be subverted there, but they could just kill her off. It's highly possible because I don't know.
Well, yeah, it's and I was of the mind up until I put a picture up. I think this is just a kind of a poor attempt. Is she showing there? I'm not an expert. I don't have kids. But he is holding. He looks. How dare you say that he's not a human? He is a beautiful human being. Anyways, yeah, as far as motivations go, I continuously say that their guns are pointed in the same direction. They're pulling the trigger for a different reason. It's very, and that's what I talk about. It's important to understand even the slight differences. And I'm obsessed with story in general. But I like when I understand what love means to a character, meaning like, okay, if I have a character, if you just tell me about a story that is about somebody searching for love, that's not just, going to automatically be a story about somebody that is looking for marriage or a sexual relationship. You know what I mean? Like, the way in which we view these primal urges and these things that are present in our life, and the way we equate, sexuality with love, because they do go, together a lot of times. When you are connected with somebody, you tend to, do what happens to old baby Billy Cersei here, but yeah, I mean, but we see that with Gendry. He gets the mantle of Lord, right? And so he feels he's on the same level with Arya. They've had sex, so the only thing that was keeping them from getting married was he wasn't a lord. But hey, guess what? I'm a lord now. We had sex. We're obviously in love, and I'm not trying to be a dick about it. It's just, it's kind of a cool subversion of the trope, because usually they would have it be like some like young naive girl, and that I wouldn't put it past them, because the way they empower women is not really done that well in this show. So I really like that it's Gendry that did that, like a pretty manly dude. that was really kind of like, running down with his hands waving. He was very giddy about it. He's like, guess what? I'm a lord and we can get married. And she's like, nah, like, I had fun, hun. It was good. You know what I mean? Like, we had a good time, but that's why it was a good time, because I'm not looking to make plans. But he's like, I got a castle now. She's like, I'm good. Good. I'm going to go do fucking Arya shit. So I think it was actually interesting, and the connection and how people view family, because that's something that is brought up with Theon. And it's something that's brought up with John and Dany. Like, you made a valid point. Like, Dany's relation. I mean, in the books, she does kind of embrace the idea of marrying her brother for the first half of the first book, because that's just natural. Like, that is Bran. If the three-eyed frickin' incest crow is watching, I'm not advocating for it. I'm just saying that it would make sense. She was like, raised that way. Like, she did want to marry him. She wasn't like dreading it. But yeah, she has like no fucking like she doesn't even know who. I think it would be good to get some Bran information, like showing Rhaegar at Harrenhal, the attorney at Harrenhal or something, so she could get to know. Because that would service John's plot as well. But we got to know what our characters are, not because they're all jostling for power, but power means different things to them. Like, Sansa's power in season 1, she wanted to technically be queen because she was going to marry Joffrey. She wanted to be on the Iron Throne. Okay. But that means something significantly different to Sansa season 8 if she were to sit on that throne, because of the experiences she's went through. And also the way in which she viewed power in season 1 is different as well as a whole. It's not that she's just been so jaded now, which she has, and she's been through horrible things, but she wanted more so the idea that fairy tale, it wasn't so she could push through social reform and stuff like that. We see Dany do things in Slaver's Bay. They're heavy-handed, but we see instances of politicking. And I think one of you did speak to this, and I really like when people bring up the idea that you it's fun to say break the wheel and we need an out-of-the-box thinker for politics and all this, but guess what? To be a good politician and be like good in government, like, you have to be a bureaucrat. You have to be a politician. Like, I think it's very much so got a stigma about it, and yes, there's dirty shit at play, but if you don't understand the system in which you work in, you can't fucking make change. So you can't just have somebody that just has no idea what they're doing go in and rule. So it's like, again, good intentions don't result with good results. It's not like, synonymous. So the idea of Jon having good intentions, because that's kind of the character he is, just does the right thing. Dany has shown more, at least efforts, but again, like King brought up earlier, it's all in Essos where she did all this stuff. Like, I mean, she literally like got a living wage, forever everybody. Like, she was like, I mean, she was on committees, like, you guys got to read the books. Like, she gets it done. Like, she gets paid time off for people that are pregnant. She does all these really good special committees and really gets it through. She's like LBJ over there. But no, like, Jon doesn't like push for reform. Sansa just wants to be left alone. And Cersei just wants to rule because she wants to be above everybody else other than her. That's not her. That's not them. And I don't know who's them anymore. It's whatever might be in supposedly that pregnant belly and possibly Jaime. So, I mean, it's self-preservation. But it's also self-preservation for Sansa, but it's just, again, it means different things. So we're going into this final act where literally I don't know who I could be satisfied with sitting on the throne. I mean, we'll close it up in a minute here, but I really want to get some insight into, like, do you guys have an idea in your head, like, of who you would be satisfied with? Just looking at it from a story sense as well. We don't need to think about all the like social reform, but it just, I think it's fair to say we understand the story, so like we should be able to come to a conclusion in which would satisfy us, and we wouldn't think, oh, that didn't really pay out, that didn't really tell us anything. This message really wasn't conveyed, because I thought I would have been a lot further along, which is probably not abnormal at this point as far as like who I was dead set on, sitting on the throne. And up until recently, I thought that throne would be gone, but I would bet, and I did bet hacks on air yesterday, $50 that throne stays. I think there's no way they're getting rid of it. It seems like that's just too much to do. I'll probably be wrong, but go ahead and go to you first, Andrew. And I'm got a gambling problem, so if you want to throw some bets down, we can do it.
Honestly, I don't think Danny is going to be the one to sit the throne. I probably would be rooting more for Jon to eventually sit the throne. I do believe there will be someone sitting the throne. Don't get me wrong. There's definitely this whole breaking the wheel thing. I think that's just part of the story. I think that we're still in a day and an age where monarchs rule. Democracy is too early for this society, and I mean, I think that the only way that the North are going to want to stay as part of those kingdoms is if Jon is that king.
Valid point. It's certainly what it seems like right now. So I
Yeah.
guess it's what can Jon do in that meantime to either get himself killed or fuck it up. What do you think, King? I think it should be you, just by the name, by name right.
I think I was like in the camp of no throne for a lot of the seasons, and then by the halfway through season 7, I'm like, I think they are. I think they're just gonna have someone be on the throne, which is a little bit disappointing. But it's also like that's the only way everyone's aiming for it, and the only way there's not a throne is if like Cersei blows up the throne room, and then like everyone who is like a major contender dies, and then people are like, who's next? But realistically, I think we could have an independent North, and we could have like a breakup of the kingdoms, because everyone's focusing on how do we keep this together. It's like, but is keeping this together a positive thing, like a good thing? I would be more like it's possible that they could have the North be independent, and that's actually a better outcome for Westeros. Like it's a very separate place. It's geographically they can separate themselves quite easily with the neck, and they've got very different culture and different climate. Yeah, I'm the same camp as you, where I was this entire last few episodes have just made me question who I even want on the throne, and I don't know who I would be backing at this point. Like Jon doesn't seem competent enough as a rule. Like Varys said, he's a pushover if he was to share a throne with Dany, and Dany just seems like she's not in a place where she's even trying to rule successfully in this place. So I don't even know what horse to back at this point.
Yeah, it's a valid point. I don't know if you've ever heard my Africa analogy, but I always equate Westeros to Africa because Africa's too tall and it has a lot of climate. I know it's not its only issue. I always have to state that when I say this because people are going to say that all their problems I'm deducting to being too. But as a continent, they are very tall. They have like 12 different climate regions. So when you live in different climates and you have different terrain, you have to provide for yourself differently, and people's values are different. So that's where you get this like xenophobia and tribalism and stuff like that. I mean, like the North is vastly different from Riverland's vastly different from Dorne, even the Crown. You know what I mean? It's different, like ecosystems everywhere they go. People are just they don't share the same values. Like they argue like where the North is. You know, this isn't the real North. We have that in America too. You just keep going further down south until you get to real America, and then you want to get the fuck out. Yeah, I think that it is the game of Thrones. So I think that whether or not it's like they're symbolically or not, it's about who is going to be left alive, which I really want to continue to stress is important. For a role to be a living person. Usually dead people don't get elected. In who that person is, and we have a good understanding of who they are. I think what you said, Kane, about they are going to showcase some sort of like separation or something, whether it's separation or not, which I do think the North has a high chance of that. Because I think what has the most conflict, I see Sansa in the North and I see Jon on the throne, because Jon is a reluctant leader. So if Dany doesn't get the throne, or if Dany gets the throne and Jon dies, she loses a love interest, but she still gets the throne, so it's not as much conflict. It is bittersweet, but newsflash, I've said it, every story's ending is bittersweet. That is just, that's just clever marketing. One intern said bittersweet one day, and for some reason it's captivating. And everybody's like, what do you think bittersweet means? I'm like, I don't know. You ever seen like Breaking Bad? Ever seen Sopranos? Ever seen every show that's been on in the last 15 years? Like, it's not going to be like running off in the fucking flowered field. I don't know. It's going to be a little bit good, a little bit bad. But yeah, I see, like with this injection of Dorne and hopefully like Edmure Tully or something, they need to establish again the Seven Kingdoms. They need to make them present for these last 2 episodes, or at least in the last episode, because we can't talk about the kingdom being ruled if we don't see the kingdom. Unfortunately, certain characters just are a representation because of the very nature of the medium of television. You know, they already do have the biggest cast, that I'm not really shitting on it. It's just, you know, Tormund is the free folk. Brienne, you know, is, I guess, represents the Sapphire Islands, and you know, Gendry is the Stormlands. So that's why I think we didn't see a lot of main characters die in the last battle, because they just can't, because you have no representation. Then, you know, it's like when the Sand Snakes died, it's like, oh, there goes Dorne. So, you know, I think it is important that they do, you know, introduce these people, and I don't see any other reason for them to do that other than to, you know, get a little bit more of a realistic military force, you know, which probably could have been arguably done in a better way, but whatever. Yeah, I think that it's interesting. I think that the story, you know, I always love connecting with new content creators and people that are, you know, passionate about these stories. And Game of Thrones is something that brings in people from a lot of different walks of life. You're in New Zealand, Andrew's in Australia. Is there beef between those two, or are you guys good?
Depends who won in rugby.
Who won? Andrew?
I don't follow rugby, so
Is that offensive to you that he doesn't share your values? I'll leave it alone, but let's just say they're pissed at each other. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, this is yeah, you know, I'm in America. We got it figured out. But no, you know, we get these different world views, and I think, you know, I'm not too familiar with your guys' government, but ours isn't going well. So, you know, it's something. You did a great video actually recently, Kane. That was very much of that mind, right? It was how could we not see it coming, right? Wasn't that the general idea of the Night King and the showcasing of global warming and all that?
Oh, yeah.
Kind of could you tell people about that? That was an interesting video. That's kind of a commentary on our current state, which is great.
When I was doing my review for, I think it was episode 2, or maybe episode 2, I was just like, maybe on episode 1, I was doing a rant, and the rant, I realized, applied excessively well to the current political climate around climate change. And so I reworded it a little bit to make it a little bit more sense for like the analogy. And I just had this big rant about how Jon Snow, Sansa, and they couldn't get together, even though the White Walkers were coming, and they were facing very common issues, but they weren't dealing in the common manner. They weren't like working well. And then I put footage of like hurricanes and climate graphs over the top of it. It was quite a fun video to make. It was just cheeky. And then I got so much shit in the comment section from that. Like, some people went pretty crazy at me. But I think that
you got backlash from that.
Yeah, there's a bunch of people calling me flaming liberal. But
how dare you care about the earth, you freaking snowflake?
Yeah, I saw. Yeah, even I think George R. even confirmed that he equated the White Walkers to climate in some way, and that it was kind of a bit strange how the North was like all of these really small problems that seem so dumb in comparison to a giant army of the dead hitting you. And I feel like even this is carried on even now. They haven't even taken down Cersei yet, and yet they're still doing all the politicking again. And so it's like different people's values kind of interpret the way that they interpret like a threat and how they go forward on it. Because Sansa's for the North, she sees the Cersei threat as something that like more waste of men. Even if she doesn't like Cersei, it's not something she wants to rush into and hand fist. Where Dany has her sense of values, she wants to get on the throne as quickly as possible. Doesn't like the fact that she can't call herself queen. And then you've got like Jon, who just has his divided loyalty on personal values to Daenerys, and that's why he's doing his politics a certain way. Even if he does like the North, he doesn't. Maybe he would even agree with Sansa on the men because he's a warrior. He has to back Dany because of his own values. And so it seems like a whole bunch of people who have the same problem just can't deal with it the same way.
Yeah, because it's not the same problem, right? Because it's the same problem. It's the same event. It's the same force, but it means something different to them because everybody, lives their life differently. And as we see, I think that, George definitely had climate change in mind. If not, I mean, it was written in 1993. He's quite the progressive thinker. It's definitely their force of nature in the book. The verbiage is all just equated to nature, every single aspect of them. is. Yeah, I like that video a lot. I like stuff like that because it speaks truth. That's, we think that we'd all get together if what is it, Independence Day, where everybody, like Brian Pillman or whatever his name is, makes a speech and everybody gets together and they fight the aliens. Will Smith punches one. No, that's we'd still be fucking fighting with each other. Trump would build a wall in space or something. You know what I mean? Like it's we think that we oh man, if there's a real problem, like I like that video because there are real problems. We would do something. And as real problems are happening, like we are using this as allegory when literally it's like not snowing in some places and only snowing in places where it doesn't snow. So yeah, it's interesting.
It's kind of like people complaining about who gets the alien technology before you kill the aliens.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I want that space gold. Ever see the South Park episode where they fight over they had space gold and the kids have to explain to them the space gold is only worth what they actually give worth to it is meaningless, but they all keep trying to screw over the aliens to get the space gold. They're like, it's worthless. You assess the worth. You apply the worth to it. Yeah, but I think it's a great story. I think that like all great stories, and this one is very much controversial as far as it's very polarizing. The conversations that can come from this in the fandom, and I've talked about it before. It's the difference between thinking, hey, I didn't like this, and hey, that was wrong. That story was incorrect. That's, oh man, that whole plot didn't make any sense, or those, say things like that didn't fit an arc or this or that. And it's just labeling criticism properly. If you're going to structurally analyze it and you have an education or at least informed yourself to do that, that's good. If you are a fan, you should, look at it as a consumer. I like cars. I drive cars. I can say I don't like it the way a car drives. I can't engineer a car, so I can't give a reason for it. I think that's the problem you run into. A lot of people are going to say, they're going to continuously say it's not the books, and yes, it is not. Because it's impossible. It's a television show. I think that we are going to be set up for disappointment, to be honest. I've been overly positive this season. I had to fight when I first started making content not to be a contrarian and just pick out, because it's easy to do that. But it is a good show. Their plotting is not well. It's not well laid out. They tend to just hammer. They're more of a hammer, a sledgehammer when it comes to getting things done. They smash their way to places. They Hulk their way. There's not a lot of nuance when they have to get from point A to point B without any. I'm assuming George provided more of structure within the actual like boarding and plotting of the actual story. It's just now A, B, C, D, and they get there in very crazy ways. But I think that no matter what, it's a story we love. So we're not going to be thrilled that it ends because we're essentially losing these people in our lives. That's what story is. So it's a metaphor for life. So, thank you guys for coming on. I think that, next episode we're going to see, I think we're going to get some deaths. And I think that more importantly, we're going to get some switching in loyalty. Some musical chairs, like I said, as far as alliances go, because I don't see anybody on the same page right now, and I think it's going to get a whole lot worse before it gets better, and if it gets better at all. So any closing thoughts or anything like that? And if you guys have not subscribed to Andrew, please do so. He has great production value on his videos, and he just started like last month. And he is somebody that I can have on if I am in a bind and I need somebody to talk about a show. I can just assume Andrew is informed about it. You have a really wide range of knowledge, and it's excellent. You deal with me, and I try to be the best person I can, but we all know it's not easy. So, no, I loved it. You got your channel going, and I always say that when people come on and they collab and they don't have a channel. I'm like, you can get a webcam and a microphone and get one. You know what I mean? Like you don't gotta get government approval or anything. And of course, Kane, I'm happy. I've been asking you when I've always watched your Vikings videos because literally there's not a lot of people that do it, and there's really barely anybody that does it well. And your videos are just really, really well put together, and I like the way you think, and I love your production value as well. You really understand how to visually tell story. And again, I always am tempted to do those reviews that you do right away for the upcoming weeks. And I think a lot of people have adapted something that you've been doing for a while now. So I appreciate that as a content creator, and I appreciate it that you're actually a good guy that's talented and intelligent. And I look forward to continue to see you grow. And, hope I can, get up to your level one day. So thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having us. It's been a really good discussion. I've always enjoyed your live streams. You go like really in depth into the story of a character. You're also a lot more like nice to the show sometimes than people when like there's like I agree that 100% on that. Criticizing a show so much easier than finding the really awesome story elements in it, because it's just so obvious sometimes when they make mistakes. And so having someone actually challenge the story ideas around it, or that could like relate to our society and what other things, that's really awesome. Always love your content, and it's great to be on.
Yeah, absolutely. It's tough to get noticed. I do. It's shameless plug, but I'm sorry. I did get invited to be on a panel for Con of Thrones to talk about Age of Heroes. I am attending. I am not doing a GoFundMe. I've been adamantly against people that use that, so I'm not going to be a hypocrite. But I am saying that if you do super chats, or you are one of my Patreons, it's always important for you to know where that money goes. It goes towards my editing software right now, but I always encourage people to be Patreons. And if you would like to support creativity and support me for $3 a month, hopefully we barely noticeable for you, and it makes a huge difference for me. And that's what that money would be going towards June 11th, my plane ticket and the hotel. So if you're ever going to do a super chat or anything like that, consider just donating to the PayPal, because that's a better way to support, especially when the funds are going for something that is kind of come out of nowhere. YouTube takes 30%. So if you I know I got some really great people that support me, are really faithful, and just I don't even deserve. So yeah, I appreciate super chats and stuff like that, but the fact is that that's funding YouTube so much that it's to the point of I don't even know. I'd like to find a different avenue for that. I think a lot of content creators would, but yeah, I just would like to voice that if you do want to support me, that that's where that would be going, and that is something that is needed. So I'm going to go there and be there no matter what, to talk about television shows. Yes, definitely. Any help does a lot. And thank you guys, and make sure to subscribe to these. And I think, and we put all your links down there as well. Yeah. So let's go, because I have to go and do a actual ending of the stream that is not in front of me, else it'll just continue to go on. So if you guys are listening,
Yep.
Go, and we're still live. They can hear us. You can hear us. You can be a terrible person. No, they can't hear you. No, thank you guys. Let's see. I hate that I had to change that fucking